Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the town board meeting for July 14th. We'll start with the pledge by Councilman Blaisdell. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Frank. Wendy, can you call the roll, please?
Councilman Blaisdell.
Present.
Councilwoman Kerr. Present. Councilman Froelich.
Present.
Councilman Isakson.
Present.
Supervisor Zalatic.
Present. We'll have our first public comment session of the evening. Anybody would like to speak? Please raise your hand and step up to the podium. Fresh battery in the microphone. Seeing none? Oh, go ahead, Shannon. Sorry.
My question is, do you guys still have to do leave requests for your employees if they want time off or, for vacation pay, anything?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, I put a FOIL in, asked for certain records. Of course, I didn't get any of the leave request, vacation time paid off, and I also did not get the payroll records up until June 15th that I requested. They ended the last week in May instead of going to the dates I requested.
Okay, so we owe you one pay period.
Okay, but that's not the point. The point is I requested certain records and only some of the records are here.
I will talk to the comptroller tomorrow and get you the rest of those records.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Mr. Dawson. Hang on just a second, sir. Okay, sorry about that, sir. We had the speakers off. You're all set. Go ahead.
You want me to re-identify myself, Supervisor?
Sure, go ahead.
Tony Dawson, Planet Waste Recycling, 274 Greenfield Avenue, Boston, New York. Good evening. Just short and sweet. This evening at a little before 5 p.m., I sent an email to all board members regarding an item on the agenda tonight, Resolution 43-2021. I expect that you all received it and had an opportunity to review it. And at this time, I would just like to request that you take into consideration the points that I've raised into consideration before taking any action on Resolution 43-2021. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We've got one more person, right, and then you can right. Mr. Licata, I hope.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Tony.
Yeah. Tony Licata, Ichabod Lane. I was reading the article in the Saratoga today about the airport. I find it interesting. Some of the stuff I think everybody knew. But the last paragraph, second to the last paragraph, you will quote it, Betty Zlotnick expressed concern about the county potentially expanding the airport if it acquires properties. Beach, the current airport master plan does not include expanding the runways or making them longer in any way. Who doesn't know that right now? Ask them. He says they're not going to expand it. Why don't someone ask them, is that their plan in the next master plan? I mean, we know they can't do anything right now. I mean, that's a crazy statement to make. Could somebody please ask them if they are going to, plan looking into expanding it? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, moving on. We need a motion to accept the minutes from the June 23rd meeting.
Is the public comment?
I'm sorry. You're more than welcome, ma'am.
Yep. Holly Wendell's 223 Meadowlark. I don't think that there's anybody in town who would welcome another Planet Recycling. And I would like to think that the town's zoning laws would not allow something that really belongs in the Port of Albany to exist in a residential area. Unfortunately, Milton got hoodwinked, and we kind of got backed into the point where we had to accept what is there. What I would like to see the board consider is what can be done to prevent that from ever happening again. Maybe we should not allow grandfathered things if in fact current zoning laws would prohibit them. That might be a good place to start. My second comment tonight concerns finances. And I recently learned that one of the town departments has a huge surplus, and yet the town bonds things like a new roof. And that doesn't make any sense. It's all taxpayer money, and the taxpayers shouldn't be paying for something that's an emergency while we're sitting on an egg somewhere. Those are my only comments.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Ray, you want to take a couple minutes?
If I could.
Sure. If you can grab the handheld mic.
I'm not sure if that's actually on.
I think it is. No, it was a minute ago. It was. I
No, I heard
just.
I heard you. I'll speak real loud.
Just give him your mic then, so everybody else can hear too.
Thank you for allowing me to have some time here. The reason I asked to be put on the agenda tonight is because I haven't been here to give anybody reports on EMS in this town in, well, I think since COVID. You know, it was just something that we didn't do. And I wanted to go through some stats and give you an idea of what is up with community emergency, okay? Hopefully everybody knows that we cover the entire town, okay? It's under our ambulance umbrella. We've been doing it since 1966. I'm not sure exactly when the first contract for the town of Milton was written, but we are contracted to do the entire town of Milton, the upper third of the town of Alston, and the Middle Grove Fire District. We also cover a good portion of the town of Greenfield, and as I found out about 3 years ago, we even cover a little corner of the town of Charlton, which I didn't even know after being in the squad since 1983. So it's a pretty big area. We're at about 100 square miles now. Our call stats last year with the pandemic were up higher than they have ever been. And it wasn't just because of COVID, but it was because people were staying home. They were waiting longer before they went to a doctor. They were a little more hesitant about taking care of what were little problems, and then they developed into bigger ones. So then they call us. Last year for the year, we ended up 2,535 calls. John, if I could pick your brain a little bit, what does the fire department in Milton do? How many calls a year approximately?
About 400.
About 400. So we're out there a little more. And that's not taking away from the fire department, that's just normal with the fire departments. And this year, so far, we have almost 1,400 calls in as of the end of June. which puts us on a pace for about 2,750, 2,800, somewhere in that neighborhood calls this year. That's going to require us to actually at least put on one more full-time, possibly two more full-time people. Our average recovery per call is actually down this year because we're seeing more calls for senior citizens. Senior citizens a lot of times have Medicaid, Medicare, and Medicaid, Medicare doesn't pay much. So even though the volume goes up, the price per call goes down. Just some quick numbers here. Outside of the town of Milton, and it's strange, our financing comes from the tax district, and 76% of that money comes from the town of Milton. 24% comes from the town of Ballston. Our call volume, as it would be, 76% of the calls are from the town of Milton. 24% are the town of Ballston. Okay? Of those two towns. Weird how that works out, but there must be somebody figuring it somewhere. It wasn't me. And that's splitting the village, you know, because it does cover both towns. The different types of calls that have about the same this year and last: abdominal calls, cardiac arrests, chest pain, falls, which are huge. About 400 of the calls we answer each year are to do with somebody falling. That's why we're trying to get out there and talk to seniors about getting rid of throw rugs and what's safe in your home and all that kind of stuff. Hemorrhaging, lacerations, something that we're seeing consistent, but more than I would like to see are psych calls, okay, where people are having psych episodes. It's a lot of it has to do with what we've been dealing with the last year and a half. Calls that are up significantly are breathing related and poisoning. Most of the poisoning ingestion type calls that we're seeing are overdoses. Okay, heroin. It's just crazy. You know, the amount of heroin that's out there and being used, and it's not 20-year-old kids. It's, I mean, we had one a couple of weeks ago. The guy was 61 years old. I mean, you know, I'm a little bit north of that, and it's like, what's he thinking? You know, you don't know what they're going through, but still, it's just hard to fathom. And strokes. A lot more strokes out there. Again, I think it's from people not looking at the signs and ending up with things going wrong that shouldn't be. Man hours. Anybody know how many man hours the town spends in a year? Ballpark. No,
Man hours total?
total man hours for the year.
65,000?
65?
30 employees, 2,000 hours apiece would be 60,000, so.
Okay. We're doing 44, we did 44,000 last year. Okay? We're one of the biggest employers in this town, maybe second only to the town. That's why I asked that, because I know we put in a lot of man hours. This year, because of the increase in the call volume, and I guess fortunately, because we're having our crews fill in more, we're going to hit somewhere around 47,000 hours this year. That's our projection. Payroll costs, last year came to $1,250,000. This year, it's looking like it's going to come somewhere around $1,350,000. So about a $100,000 increase this year. And again, these are projected figures, but yeah, who knows? And I was paying premium last year for folks that were working during the midst of COVID. We gave everybody an increase for the period of about 8 to 10 weeks. We boosted their hourly rate, and again, we didn't have any openings. So if you're going to give people a boost, that was the time to do it. And fortunately, we did get a PPP loan, so that helped us cover some of that. And our average hourly rate last year overall was under $28 an hour. This year, it's looking at about $28.50. So about a 2% increase, which is pretty normal in the industry. New equipment over the past year. We bought a new ambulance. That was about $235,000 for a new ambulance. And it's, believe me, it's nothing fancy. One of the other local agencies just purchased one. They took delivery on it, I think, in May, and it cost them $270,000. So you can spend all you want on ambulance. They're more than happy. The salesmen are more than happy to help you out. It was the 10-year cycle of our stretchers and our lift systems for the back of the ambulances. Those were about $145,000 expense this year. And we just entered into a contract for new monitors that we use in conjunction with the AEDs. It's what, when we come to your house, we hook you up so we can do a 12 lead and send it off to your doctor and find out what's going on. I got a deal. I was able to get 40% off, and it was a little bit over $100,000. That's a 40%. So again, the equipment's not cheap, and this year hit us pretty hard for that. Right now we have 4 ambulances, and thank you Rock City Falls Fire for allowing us to keep one of them in their firehouse. We don't have enough room in ours to keep it in there. We also have 3 first response vehicles. We can fit one of those in our station. Our employees are very, very dedicated folks. Most every one of them, well, all of them are professional responders. Most of them, probably 70% of them, are firefighters somewhere. And they work as paramedics. And they come and work for us on their off days. Most fire departments are a on 1, off 3 situation with scheduling. So we get them the other days. And then they go from us to Malta, to Clifton Park, to wherever they got to go. Of those folks, 31 out of 48 of our responders have been with us over 5 years. So we don't have a lot of turnover. 19 of the 48 have been with us over 10 years. And 5 of us, though I don't respond anymore, have been over 20 years with us. So we have 4 others besides me that have belonged to our organization in one form or another for over 20 years. So we have a lot of dedication, and dedication to the towns that we live in. Current building, we are out of room. Right now we're living in 5,600 square feet. As I say, we can't even get all of our equipment, our response vehicles inside our building. We're looking at a need of about 10,000 to 12,000 square feet. We have 4 bays, we need 8. We have 4 bunk rooms, we need at least 6, so that we can increase our crews and give everybody the privacy that they should have. They're there 24/7. So we have folks that come in at 6 in the morning, and they leave 6 the next morning. You gotta give them a place to sit and sleep and all that good stuff. We have no current facilities for public education, senior safety, CPR, those kind of things. I was just talking with these gentlemen here, and was saying that we just did a class at the seniors over at their place over at the Hannaford Plaza. They have AEDs, they don't know how to use them. So we were able to give them a class on that, and how to do CPR. And, oh my God, you're talking seniors, these guys are 70, 80 years old. Yeah, but if they can pump a few times, it might give us time to get there. Okay. Minimal room for staff training. Anybody that's here, anybody that's listening, call me, stop down at the station, we'll give you a tour to show you. There's just no place for training. No separate decon areas. Decontamination is real important. You come back from a call where somebody has had scabies or, it could be anything. And we get back, we gotta clean the stretcher. Now we're doing them out in the bays. There should be, by state mandate, a decon area. So you can decontaminate that the right way. Our decon room is about the size of a stall in one of the restrooms. It's very small. It has a washer and a dryer and a sink. And then over on this side, there's a little place for if somebody needs to take a shower, they could, but I probably couldn't, a smaller person might be able to. We need more room for that. And to have the equipment that's necessary for that stored in that same room. One dryer, as I said, one washer and dryer, and that set we use for our towels, our blankets, and any decon that we have to do. And we go through a lot of that washer cleaner. We throw those little things in there. Improper oxygen storage and dispensing. By law, you're supposed to have a separate facility for storage of oxygen tanks because of OSHA laws. We can't do that in the situation we're in now. Safety concerns about backing into our building. We got to back up on the street. We have to turn around in the street and block traffic and all that. Not safe. Our call volume. We've done studies for 3 years. Our call volume is in the town of Milton. As I said, up above. The call volume is in the town of Milton. 76% of the time we're in the town of Milton. We need to be in town center. We need to create indoor storage and availability, or we would create with a new building, indoor storage and availability of the town of Milton emergency trailer. Right now that trailer is stored outside in all kinds of weather. That's why we want 8 bays, so we can dedicate 1 bay to that trailer. So it's in where it's warm, and if it's needed, we're not taking frozen stuff to wherever it is we need this. Dedicated secured storage rooms for narcotics, basic and advanced life support equipment. We don't have that now. It's all sort of in little metal cabinets, and you got to have 19 keys within these different things. Doesn't lend itself to what we need. Separate locker facilities. Our lockers up until this past January were in the bunk rooms. So if I had clothing or my sleep gear that was in the room that you were staying in, I had to wake you up so I could get my coat. So we moved them all out into our meeting room. Thereby our meeting room gets smaller. We need separate locker facilities. And the biggest thing that our folks ask for in a new building, move the restrooms. Right now we have a day room where they sit and watch TV and relax, and the restrooms are right there. So anybody that's in there, say, taking a shower, let's say, everybody knows what they're doing. It's really not comfortable. So again, the design is not what would conducive to doing the kind of business we need to. We want to get into town center. We're working to get there. Any help that we can get, we move tomorrow. We're ready to go. We're ready. I've talked to banks. I have designers. I have all that. Just want to get there. Any questions from anybody on the board?
I don't necessarily have a question, Ray. I think you hit everything pretty well. It's unfortunate how things have changed in the emergency services industry in this past year, as far as what everybody has to do now. I know you talked about decon and all that, which is all these state mandated, unfunded mandates. So
yeah, they don't give you any money to do anything.
unfortunately, those come across the thing monthly. So yeah, it is very important to support you.
Any questions from anybody else?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to find anybody on this board objecting to you moving into town center. I think it's a great idea. I would personally, as a board member, would like to be more on the in as to exactly what's happening. I mean, you're talking a huge building. I don't even have a concept of how that's gonna fit in the parking lot or whatever.
Oh, he's
But
on.
that's not your
Well-
issue. I think the board has to come together, we all have to start talking and keep everybody updated on what's happening here.
If you look at Rock City's station and the property they have,
Right, that's.
it would almost be a mirror image on the other side of the road.
Okay,
That's,
all right. but
that's
they have-
approximate
they have
size of the
bays
building,
going
and-
back.
because they have the 8 bay, or you got 10 bays over there, right?
Four.
Four
Drive-throughs.
Four drive-throughs, so it's
And
8
two in the
bays.
front. The square footage, I think we're about.
All the same? Okay, that gives me an idea.
Yeah, yeah. Same size property, about 2 acres is what we're looking at. Okay, so again, I'm there all the time. Anybody needs me, has a question, please feel free to call. Thank you.
Thanks,
I
Rick.
appreciate the time.
Thank you, Ray.
Next item is a motion, a resolution to approve the purchase of a truck for the building department. Resolution 42 of 2021, resolution to approve purchase of a 2022 Chevy Trailblazer for the building department. Whereas the building inspector has advised the town board that due to the aging condition of the building department 2008 Ford F-150, it is necessary to replace such vehicle with a new truck. Resolved that the town supervisor, now therefore be it resolved that the town of Milton building inspector is hereby authorized to take out of service a 2008 Ford F-150 and to order for purchase a 2022 Chevy Trailblazer for the approximate amount of $20,479.84 as set forth and described in the attached documents. Be it further resolved that the town supervisor is authorized to expend the sum of $20,479.84 plus taxes and incidental costs in order to pay for the purchase of the 2022 Chevrolet Trailblazer from Web Smart Chevrolet of Spencerport, New York, and to do all things necessary and sign all documents required. Resolved that the said amount is to be funded from the 2021 building department budget or as otherwise determined by the town controller, and the controller is authorized to make the necessary budget transfers needed for such purchase.
Go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Brenda, will you pull the board, please?
Sorry.
Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kerr.
Yes,
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isakson.
Yes.
Supervisor Salatta.
Yes. Jumping back, I need a motion to accept the minutes from June 23rd.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Ryan.
I'll second.
Any discussion or corrections? Seeing none, Brenda, will you pull the board, please?
Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kerr.
yes,
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isakson.
Yes.
Supervisor Salatta.
Yes. Next up, Resolution 41. Whereas the town board typically approves the fee schedules at its January organizational meeting, however, from time to time reviews the fee schedules throughout the year to determine if changes are necessary and need to be considered in May. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby approves the revised fee schedule, amending the same to include the return check fee of $20 as set forth on the attached fee schedule, which is hereby adopted and shall take effect immediately. Anybody?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Frank.
second,
Thank you, Bart. Any discussion? Brenda, can you pull the board, please?
Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kerr.
yes,
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isakson.
Yes.
Supervisor Salatta.
Yes. Next up is Resolution 42, to hire and appoint Bart and Ann Logwadice. to prepare a noise level assessment for certain areas in the town. Whereas the Town of Milton is seeking a noise assessment assistance relating to an existing salvage yard located at 274 Greenfield Avenue. And whereas town residents of the Town of Milton have made complaints regarding the noise and vibrations that come from said salvage yard. And whereas pursuant to the town procurement policy, the town solicited proposals for such work. And whereas Barton and Longwoodies provided the town with a proposal and appears to be the best choice for the required work and best value and timing for the town. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby awards, appoints, and hires Barton and Longwoodies of 10 Airline Drive, Suite 200, Albany, New York, to perform a noise assessment for the Town of Milton at a cost not to exceed the sum of $4,000 plus miscellaneous additional costs, if any, all as set forth on the attached proposal, and to provide recommendation to the town as to the mitigation options available to address any high noise levels.
I'll make that
Therefore-
motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any discussion? I have a couple of questions or a couple of thoughts. This proposal is for 8 hours of study, and I'm not sure that 8 hours is going to be enough time, or if a date is picked or announced, what guarantees do we have that this operation will just not do anything that day and it'll look like nothing's happening? I think we need to see more hours spread out over a time period, over a longer period of time.
I probably don't necessarily agree with that, Benny, only because 8 hours is going to cover basically their day. We're not going to tell them what day we're setting up and doing this test, I assume, so that they won't have nobody will be forewarned. Basically, and the other thing I had, when I read Mr. Dawson's letter that he sent this afternoon, I think all of his concerns that he wanted in the sound study beforehand are really things that the sound study will answer for us. When he talked about, what decibel levels we want them to look at, we need to know what the decibel levels are, and then we can see if that's acceptable for an industrial type operation versus something else. So I think these concerns really come after the study.
And remediation also.
Yes.
What their advice would be for remediation,
But
some
I
type
think,
of remediation.
We're looking at $4,000 for 8 hours. If we do it more, you can just multiply the $4,000.
No, that's not exactly correct. By happy coincidence, a gentleman from B&L was in today, and I talked to him about this for a few minutes. The salesman, he was unaware that they were even in on the project. He was out looking to drum up business for the engineering side of the company. And I spoke to him about that, and I asked him if we were to do 5 days of testing, would it be $20,000? He was quite sure that it wouldn't be. The major cost is for analyzing the data, not the setup of equipment and the monitoring. The costs come from taking in a few days, however many days of data, analyzing them, and coming up with a report. That's where the cost comes from. He was quite sure it wouldn't be $4,000.
May I ask who the gentleman was?
I have his card on my desk. I can.
Yeah, because I'd like to contact him.
Yep.
The other thing is, we've had this contract for 2 weeks, over 2 weeks. And my understanding is you've been discussing this, a change in the project, in the scope of this project. I was in here Monday speaking to you about it, and you were okay with it. So why wasn't this mentioned, and why wasn't it brought to Ryan and I, who have been heading this project for over a year now?
Well, because we have discussion. If you guys are fine with 8 hours of testing and the board decides for that, that's a board decision.
I mean, I'd love to go more, but there has to be a cutoff point where I think we're going into funds that we, how high do we want to go on this? you know, where's the cutoff here? And like I said, all we need is a reading, and that was my main objective to this, was to get a good solid reading, something that was documented. Got something to say, you're shaking your head.
No.
Okay.
No, it's from the same company,
Okay.
just a different gentleman, right?
Okay, good.
Anything else? Okay, Brenda, will you hold the board, please?
Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kerr.
Yes,
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isakson.
Yes.
Supervisor Zlatman.
No. I think there needs to be more time in it, but the board's made a decision, we'll work on it. We'll work with it. Thank you. Old business.
I kind of have a comment about old business too. I find it amazing our old business list is longer than our new business list. I wish we could clear up some of these issues that we have on here.
Well, give us about 5 or 6 minutes here, maybe we can.
Okay.
On the rate review, I would like to get this done by the middle of September at the latest, so I would like to schedule, if it's okay with you guys, look over the papers that we have, get in touch with the county and see what they're looking for again as for taking over of the service. We know that there was a couple of things they listed. I think at our last, one of the discussions we had a few months ago, that Heritage said they could meet those 3 requirements or fix those 3 deficiencies. And I think we should schedule, I'd like to schedule something for the end of August or our first meeting in September. That gives us 2 months to get our act together.
I'm with you 100%. We didn't even talk about it. And that was going to be my suggestion, that we set a date on this. It's been too long.
Well, our first meeting in September would be September 8th. So we will schedule a rate review for our meeting on September 8th. If that's,
Do we want it on the, do we want it on the same date as our regular meeting? I think before we scheduled it on a different date, yes, no?
we could do the Tuesday before, the 7th, or
That's the first.
no, the Tuesday
Oh, Tuesday
before would be the 7th rather than the 8th. It would be a different night.
Rosh Hashanah, I don't know if that affects, so that might be an issue.
Doesn't affect me.
It does affect some people. It's kind of like us doing, scheduling meeting on Good Friday or something.
Well, that's fine. Pick a date, folks.
Thursday the 9th?
Thursday's fine.
Oh, wait a minute. Thursday might be-
Just,
Go ahead.
yeah, okay, at the indulgence of the board, I leave on vacation on the 10th of September. And I would like to work with the board so I could be here since it's 9 years since your past rate review. And how about August sometime? I'm sorry?
Saturday morning works for me, the 11th.
How
That'd be
about
great.
August sometime? How about, yeah, I know, I can only imagine. But I have good counsel, they'll be present anyway. How about August sometime? I totally disagree that it be part of a regular board meeting.
We don't want, no.
It should not be part of a regular
Right,
board meeting. It should be a special meeting. It's a rate review. And I was going to speak at the public comment period. And I made my notes. I think it needs to be a special meeting. I think that you need to compel the owners and their experts to attend, to provide sworn testimony, have a stenographer to keep the record, and do this properly. We've advocated for this for decades. And I think that you need to do that and do it properly. And I think that if you compel the owners, their experts, to be there in attendance and to provide sworn testimony that you're going to capture as on the record with the stenographer, and also compel them to answer the questions. It's not a difficult process. Not to go away, provide written answers at a later date. This is a time to come, answer the questions from the public and interested parties, and answer them fully and truthfully, under oath.
August 24th?
No, I won't be here. 26 might be a zoning meeting. 26, the zoning meeting follows our report we did one, correct? Yep. 31st.
I can't do the 31st.
Okay.
It's the only day I can't do.
Huh?
It's the only day I can't do.
24th, August 24th?
I can't do the 24th.
17th?
I gotta tell you, I've been asking for this rate review for the better part of a year now.
Because
I never can seem to settle
September
on a
1st?
damn date.
Yeah, what's that?
September 1st?
What is September what?
We could do September 1st.
Why? Why?
Anybody else?
That works for me.
Okay.
All right, Brendan, we'll set a rate review for September 1st.
We have to have a motion.
Okay, we need a motion.
I'll make that a motion.
What
John?
time?
I'll
Is that
second.
motion going to include, I hate to interrupt, but is that motion going to include sworn testimony, calling the owners, bringing your experts, having them testify, having a stenographer? I see we just approved $4,000 for a sound study, so I don't think it's going to be a heavy lift to get a stenographer there and have these questions answered once and for all under oath.
We have to have one of the judges here to swear people in?
I'm sorry?
We have to have a judge here to swear
No,
people in?
no, you don't need a judge.
Oh,
Okay, we need a motion for September 1st at 7 p.m.
you got the motion,
I did
I
that.
second.
Okay, and set the time. Barb seconded. Can you pull the board, please?
Did the motion include?
Tom, we'll do that, I'll take it up at the next meeting, so I can make up a list of everything that we need.
I was just asking.
I just want to get the dates set. Yeah.
I just wanted to baby steps.
Baby, I'm just gonna say
Blaisdell.
baby steps.
Baby steps. Thank you.
Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kerr.
Yes.
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isaacson.
Yes.
Supervisor Zalotnik.
Yes. Next up is the airport. I'm not sure what that is. Somebody put it on there, so
Well, the airport only because it's been a monthly topic for us. I did, Benny, read your letter that you were going to read at the county board meeting, and I really thought it was kind of vanilla.
Well, that's fine.
I don't think it really expresses the sentiment of myself or I assume the rest of the town board as far as noise levels, outside their boundary type stuff, buying taxable property and taking it off our tax rolls. I think these are all things that we really need to take a hard stand on and point out to the county.
Not another foot of town property.
Pretty much.
Well, you have my letter. Any additions you want to make to it, feel free. The next county board meeting is next Tuesday, so if you want to make additions to it, send them back to me, send them to everybody, and we can agree on what it is. This was not, the final effort. I wanted to give you guys a starting point. If you wanted to make some changes or additions, I'm more than willing to, put them in there. Liberty Hills Water. I've spoken to Carrie, I believe it's Carrie Dooley, who's doing the engineering for this for MJ, and the village has work that they need to do to make sure that the water supply is there and pressure and that kind of stuff, and they're waiting for the village to do their testing. Town hall renovation and the court electrical. I think we can throw both those in together. John, do you want to give a little update on what we've been through or where we are?
Well, we had our meeting with MJ and went through the plans. Came up with some minor changes, I would say. when I looked at it, I know we got a email back from Jenny today outlining all the requested changes and things like that. I forwarded that on to the rest of the town board, the building inspector, Brenda and Jim, so that they can all look at it. Our next shot with MJ, I think, is the 21st.
Yep.
So everything seems to be on schedule as it goes right now. As far as the court electric, I don't know really where it stands right now. I know that it failed its second inspection.
Well, the outside lights have been repaired, reinstalled.
Okay, because I spoken to MJ about that at our meeting.
Yep, those were repaired.
That was their responsibility because they broke them.
Right.
That was the roof and
Yeah.
the contractor who did the roof and the soffit.
The soffit, yeah, they
I
disconnected
know
those
there
lights or
was
whatever.
a few things inside that still needed to be done.
I think the bathroom fans, and there was a couple of connections that had to be made, and Paul Pritchard, or Pritchard Electronics is getting there when they can. We're not, he's a very small company, and we're not his only customer. I would hope anyway,
The
so.
problem is they're running under a failed inspection. That's the biggest issue.
There is, I know the judges had forwarded a list of things, and I haven't copied it off as far as what needs to be finished in the court. Some of it's minor, some of it isn't. Their aluminum entry door needs to be adjusted. It seems to be scraping and doesn't close properly. The tumblers on their locks aren't working correctly. Your entry door doesn't close correctly. Their carpets are stained, but that is due to the caterpillar problem we've all had this year, unfortunately, but we should get somebody in to clean those for them. And they had light in the court office was not working, so that's something we got to bring up to the picture.
Okay. I haven't seen that list, to be honest with you.
I haven't, to be honest
I'll
with
make you
you,
a copy.
I got it and I didn't copy it forward.
Okay, and I mean,
the
probably
other
forward a copy to Anthony also, so he can
Yeah.
knock out what needs to be taken care of.
I stopped at the court today and Judge Brown gave me a voucher to have the cameras re-hooked up. So we have to get a little logistics. I gave it to Dave to process, so. But that's important. He said he did have an issue in there today, and it's very important that they have those cameras and they're recording.
Emergency services, was that you, Red?
I don't know.
Oh,
No, I think that might have been me,
oh,
because I wanted an update, which we pretty much got, but an update on discussions with the board.
To be honest with you, I think we're at the point with Ray's people and us. The only real sticking point right now is really some legalities of turning over the land as far as fair market value. I can never understand why when you're using the same taxpayer dollars that we have to sell it for fair market value, but we do. With that being said, I know Ray, you had an appraisal done.
Yes, I did.
And I know Betty, you had an appraisal done, and they were quite a bit apart.
yep.
In my talking with Jim today, I'd also noticed in the appraisals, excuse me, that the Napa property, which is just being built upon, which is across the street from Town Hall, sold for $36,000 an acre. And both appraisals, to be honest with you, Ray, your appraisal was higher, much higher, and your appraisal was much higher. And I think looking at it, what we need to do is bring in somebody to appraise the property, get us an official appraisal, and we need to sit down with the emergency corps and get this moved along, because there isn't really anything holding it up.
No,
They're
Ray,
ready to go. We're really the people that are holding this up.
well, Ray and I have had those discussions,
And,
some discussions on that, and like you said, John, there's a legal puzzle that needs to be solved with, even though this is a not-for-profit, public service, emergency services, public safety type of place. Even Mary Beth Walsh, when I had a brief conversation with her at something, was like, there has to be something that we, and when she said we, she meant all of us, that we can put our heads together and come up with something. Whether it be a public, probably with any sale of property, we're going to have a public referendum anyway. That's what she said. We may not, I don't know. That was, you know, what she had said briefly, that may be required, because we're selling off an asset of the town. So it'll be up to the public to decide if they want to do that or not. I can't see any, I don't know for sure, but I can't see enough people, a majority of the people in town having a problem with us, you know, increasing the safety for the residents of our, you know, for everyone. So we can look at a third appraiser, have them come up with a number, and then we'll have 3 numbers to go for them, and we can use them, not use them, can sit down with Ray and figure something out.
Can we get the guy that appraised over there?
Well, we should talk to them, but see where, you know, if they actually had it appraised or if they just came to that price. But I would think by our next meeting, we should be able to have these
How many
questions.
acres was it? What did that was?
14, 15?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And you're looking for 2, right?
And they're looking
How
at
many
two.
usable acres though?
Quite a bit.
Which one isn't usable?
Well, yeah, that's minor, really. They wouldn't have been able to build on that part. It's really, yeah, the sidewalk back for about 150 feet, we have blue Carner butterfly.
You make a little park.
That's what really held up the last strip mall that was first one.
Yes, yeah, they had to do a different plan.
Well, even this plan has a small fenced-off area someplace.
Right. But I would think by our next meeting, we should be able to have all these answers for Ray and his people.
I'll
Maybe
I'll
not
find
the
an appraiser
appraisal
tomorrow.
done, but I
It shouldn't
think
take that long.
we
to have
should be
someone
able
come
to
and
give
take a
them
look
an
at it.
answer. We ought to be able to sit down and hammer this out and get it moving and get it done
If there's
with.
got to be a public referendum, we
Yeah.
need time for that.
If there doesn't, we can have your lawyers get in touch with our lawyers and draw something up. It's probably not that simple, but let's
Oh,
hope.
it is. It's real simple for our lawyers to get in touch with your lawyer.
It's the same group.
Same one?
Pretty much.
Is there a conflict of interest here?
Only if we will pay.
He's got somebody that's gonna work with us.
I know, I had a wild thought, and I don't know, even Ray, when we spoke, even if we come to an agreement, whether as a wild number, say 120,000, is there a reason why you wouldn't want to pay that over 10,000 over the next 12 years?
Oh, whatever you guys wanna do.
Whatever would be,
Would work for me. See, the whole point of it is, we're funded by public money from the town of Milton. So the town of Milton is charging us town of Milton money to pay to the town of Milton.
that's what I've always said. You know, makes no sense, but unfortunately, we live in New York State.
Yes.
Don't get me off on that.
I do have a question. I think I brought this up last time we talked about this, was with the park and ride, are we required to provide a similar layout? If that land goes to emergency corps, do we have to say the left of that, put in a similar layout?
It's all paid.
Check
We have an
with
agreement.
CDTA.
Yeah, are we under some type of contract?
We have a contract with CDTA, we'd have to look into that, but I wouldn't even hazard a guess.
And if we are required, who pays to redevelop? And are we allowed to, is allowed to go beyond the boundary where that fence is?
Well, it's our fence.
I understand that, but it's parkland,
No, that's.
No, that parkland thing
It's
is
not
not.
parkland.
even behind the fence?
It took months and months to discover that, so.
Okay.
And I think the easiest thing with the park and ride, depending on where you relocate them, Ryan, when I look at the amount of area they're using now, maybe just moving their sign to the location. I don't know if they necessarily need a bigger area, because right now they're restrained by the fence. I think that's a pretty simple.
Next up is the Route 50 transition study. I've spoken with, I'm going to get my people wrong, Jackie. She will have a final report for us for our next meeting on the 28th, for us to look over and decide how we want to move on from there. So that will be taken care of at our next, she'll be presenting that at our next meeting. Probably she'll have it before that for us to have at our meeting. The CETC grant, I think we were all in agreement that we would at least show an interest in it, apply, put our application in? Or
No.
a letter of interest, what's it called?
No, that's, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, my understanding is that you thoughtfully considered it, which I thank you for. And at this time, perhaps it's not right for the town, and we'll look at it in the future. And what I'll do is call this Sandy Mikowitz, who's the financial transportation planner at CDCC, thank her for her time and keep the door open. That's all. But I thank you, because you didn't just dismiss it. And I'm good with it.
I think one of the problems, Ellie, was we couldn't come up with a scope of the work.
Right.
And, 20% of in-kind service, the in-kind services, 20% of what? I mean, I had this discussion with Brenda and Jason one day. Are you talking $50,000? Are you talking $1 million? What are we talking? So there wasn't really a scope of the work.
I think the study was 10,000, but
yeah, but how much are we committing to?
yes, and it's
in-kind
right.
services?
But you thought about it, so thank you. Move on.
The last one we have is the .gov transition. David has spoken to our IT guy, and to transition over would be a few hours of his time, and then every email address, everyone who has a .org address now for the town, for whatever devices they're using, would have to be turned over or transitioned to. Jeff thinks it's probably going to be under $1,000 for the whole setup, because what he would like to do is have people leave things on at one night so they could go in and just do everything while they were on. But there's always a couple of stragglers, and so that would be extra time on that. But he thinks it can be done for under $1,000.
Is it really worth it to, I don't know, business cards and everything? It's kind of the rumbling I heard around the building.
Well, I think the .gov is a whole lot more professional than a .org, but that's just my take on it.
And I'll tell you, when I went over from my Gmail to my .org account, it wasn't all that smooth or so easy.
It never is.
And I'm still getting crazy things coming through from Gmail and switching over. And
That's because you go to those crazy sites.
no, I
Well, give it some thought, and at our next meeting, we can make a decision.
maybe close enough to kick you.
Under new business, we have a letter from the court for their attendance at the clerk training. The commuter meal package for the court staff would be $794. That's a whole bunch of meals. And the registration fee is $65 per clerk, so that's $130. So the cost for the attending the conference for the two clerks, including meals and approximate mileage, would be $1,184.
I believe that's mandatory
It is mandatory training, yes.
for the people, yes.
No, we didn't vote on it because we weren't sure what the whole cost would be.
Talk about it.
So now that we know, I'll entertain a motion to provide the funds for the clerks to go to the mandatory training in September.
Commuter basis, correct?
Yeah, the commuter package, yes.
Okay.
Training has to be done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they need, it's mandatory training, so they need to do it.
You seconded it.
I seconded it, yes.
Frank seconded.
Who made the motion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't hear it first.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Obviously, Frank seconded. Any discussion? Okay, Brenda, can you pull the board, please?
Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes, please.
Councilwoman Kerr.
Yes.
Councilman Froelich.
I'm abstaining because I have a personal relationship with one of the board clerks.
Councilwoman Saxon.
Yeah, that didn't
Yes.
come out right, did it?
I'll take care of it. I got it.
I'm going to say yes, but I'm quite intrigued now.
Our families know each
Oh,
other.
okay. All right. Sure.
I thought it was doing good today.
It's a lovely shade of red, John, on you. Anything else under new business?
I'm gonna bring it up again, because I promised the resident I would. Can we please get some bushes or trees planted along the road for Susan Lyle Park? If the sheriff, anything that goes on, any problems that go on in that park go on in the pavilion. And for the sheriff to see it, or the state police, which I understand were there, 2 of them one day, they have to pull in anyway. So I think try to accommodate some of these residents through the summer months. You know, what were those trees, Brenda, Aphrodite or something?
Arborvitae.
Okay.
See, your mind's right down there.
Yeah, okay.
But anyway, something along there. I promised I'd bring it up. I don't know where it'll go, but we can look into it, whatever. Thank you.
What is that again? Aphrodite? Is that what those trees that we want?
Whatever.
Anything else under new business? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our second public comment session of the evening. If anybody would like to speak, Mr. Rossi. I think we also are going to put new batteries in there, so this is up to you.
For the clock, so you're gonna have to turn it on.
There you go.
I just can't wait to see the Milton Watch video for this meeting and for that moment with John, since Judy probably edits that. Frank Rossi Jr., 63 Saratoga Ave, apartment B, also spot 12020. This is going to be almost tongue-in-cheek, but I honestly mean it. Do you folks speak to each other before a meeting at all? Because the level of dysfunctionality that just came out during even some of the agenda items, and then the old business just tells me no. And right now, it seems like the town's being held hostage by the election that's coming up, and that's not appropriate. I mean, we're playing hide the proposal in the B&L sound testing scenario. It sounds like it was information that could have been easily emailed around and discussed briefly with any questions. It wasn't.
It was handed out at the last meeting, hard copy to every member.
But then the additional information tonight, which
Right.
obviously the supervisor knew he wanted to discuss about the extra hours. Seems like old businesses were just going to throw everything possible at the wall and see what sticks here. I didn't know Liberty Hills water was on the agenda until I walked into place. My sister Gina isn't even in town. She would be the best person to speak to it if there was something to speak of. I know she called you, she's supervisor, about the status, and status sounded like it's not ready yet. But it just seemed like half those issues shouldn't have been even necessary to discuss publicly, or could have been just a tickler at the beginning of the meeting if you had a supervisor's report or something like that. It just seems like you're not speaking, not communicating as a board. And I understand that some of you may not be very happy with each other for various reasons right now, and I get that. That said, you still have to work with each other until January 1st, 2022. This is still a lot of months left in 2021. Our town deserves better than that. Please, get over whatever it is and start communicating one-on-one better than you are, because this was so unnecessary, some of this. And the grandstanding, I'm on the Republican committee in the Town of Milton. I don't shy away from admitting that fact. But I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or otherwise, nobody wants to see that. Nobody. Because we're all members, residents of the town of Milton. Let's put that first, politics later. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Bogosian.
Good evening, and thank you for taking the first step in completing this rate review that is long overdue. Thank you very much, appreciate it. And as we go forward, I mentioned from the audience that we need to establish the parameters of this rate review, make sure that we have the owner's presence, that we bring forth their experts, that we get sworn testimony, we bring a stenographer here, and we capture the record. So I'm happy to work with you, look forward to September, and thank you for that first great step. A couple other things. Emergency services, great, thank you for your update, Ray. Just a thought, is there any way to have county land on the airport be repurposed? Is that just not doable? Just throwing it out. Why do I mention it? There's a thing called host benefits. We have 500 acres of airport in the middle of our town that pays no taxes. Got that old Richmore Aviation building that takes 2 seconds to bulldoze that and create a facility that maybe they give them a 99-year lease for $1. Just a thought. It's pretty central to the town, and it would probably work for everyone. Maintenance or lack of it on town property. Street trees are knocked over, street lights are knocked down, they don't get replaced. We pay taxes for them to be replaced. I would like to see that done, and I would like to see things like where the clock tower is, the weeds pulled, the weeds cleaned up, the dead tree cut down. Taxpayers, we pay for that service, and nothing is done. We don't have any pride in ownership, and I think that we need to do that. And we need to begin to put our best foot forward. And I can tell you, from dealing with this sewer issue for over 20 years, we resolved that. We're going to start to put our best foot forward. Thank you.
Anyone else? Certainly, sir.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to follow up on what Tom said. There's one other point. At that rate review, rate hearing, it is extremely difficult to put forward any information and valid points in 3 minutes. It's not possible. So I would ask that as you formulate protocol for that meeting, that you don't limit questions to 3 minutes. That's not possible, and I think in the interest of resolving the situation, I think we have a great opportunity to do that. I think the board would want to hear all the information that is out there, and so limiting 3 minutes is very difficult. I think the airport is a great idea. Maybe it saves you guys some money, and maybe it's the start of using that airport for things that can benefit this town. It is a 500-acre chunk of tax-free property that just sits there and really doesn't provide benefit to all of us. I think it's worth exploring. The other thing is, you've mentioned, Mr. Supervisor, the Route 50 corridor. And I was here when MJ was doing the presentation, and they're talking about turn lanes, and they're talking about curbs and walks and trees and lights, which I'm very, very familiar with, because way back in 2006, I chaired the Town Center Committee. We got the plan in place and ultimately got it done. But my question to the board is, how do you plan to maintain it? Because right now, and just kind of reading it back, because I went 2 minutes, but I didn't hear an answer. Because right now, you don't maintain Geyser Road or Rollins Street. there's no maintenance of the town center investment or amenities that existed. Tom's absolutely right. A light gets run over, that gets paid for by the owner of the automobile. That gets paid for by their insurance. It should be billed to that
The
individual.
insurance company is looking into that.
Well, it's just no looking into, that's what happens. It gets, it's property, and it's property damage. Property damage is covered by auto insurance. Yet, there's trees that get knocked down, there's light poles that get knocked down, and nothing gets done. So how in the world do you think this town is going to be able to take on a project, a maintenance project, that is probably, not knowing exact parameters, but I'm going to guess 4 times the scope of what we have in the town center now? It's not feasible. Unless you have some maintenance plan in place, and if you did, it would be nice to put forth the example of what we have now. Very, very simply put, if you can't take care of what we have now, how do you take care of 4 times as much? That's a valid consideration before we expend all these funds. It's nice to build it, and I'm all about infrastructure and building it. But quite frankly, and I don't mean to disrespect anyone, the town does an abysmal job of maintenance. There is none. So we need to step it up. We should, we're the 3rd largest town in the county. We got to start acting like it. And Tom's right, putting our best foot forward and having some pride in this town where we live and work. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Mike Iacolucci, 9 Russell Street. I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that I have no idea what the idea of the rate review entails. So I've heard it talked about for a number of years. I don't know if there's a set procedure that's laid out somewhere to tell the board what it needs to do with the rate review. If there is, hopefully you're aware of it and you've looked at it or will look at it. If there isn't, and you're going to create a set of standards, that would be fine. The request I have is, given all the effort and time that various people have put in on this idea and are going to put in for the special meeting, it would be helpful to me if at the start of that meeting you explain what the charge is. What is the rate review? What's the objective? How is it done? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone at home? Go ahead, Bruce.
If you would indulge me, I may be able to shed some light on what this gentleman just talked about. Thank you. To answer your question, the sewer rates are controlled by Transportation Corporation law. And in that law, there is no set protocol for how a rate hearing should be conducted. However, there is a time that the rate hearing needs to be conducted at no more than 5-year intervals. But it doesn't say in that law, you must do 1, 2, 3 in a rate hearing. However, with that said, I think without existing protocol, the next best thing to do is take a look and see how an agency that regulates regulated monopolies, so it's the National Grid or telephone, whatever it is the PSC. And the PSC has a protocol. And that's why Tom mentioned that you have the folks come and they're sworn in and there's stenographers, and that's how it's done properly. And so I guess if we were to look for a model, we'd look to the PSC, because quite frankly, that's what these folks are doing. They're acting as the PSC for the sewer company, which is a public service. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have anything else?
Just as a clarification, I know we originally looked at the airport property for the emergency corps right next to the firehouse. When we got discussing it and the traffic flow on Geyser Road, it made more sense to put them face to face, so in the future we could put a traffic light there to stop traffic and make it safer for each agency to get out.
But what if you put it in off the access road? Then it wouldn't be like in Richmond.
But I'm saying it would help, also help the fire
Was the
department.
county approached on it?
Yeah.
What was there?
You talked to the county, right? No.
I briefly talked to them, but it was being handled beyond me, so.
I can bring it up at the next Buildings and Grounds meeting. I'll attend it and then bring it up.
Whichever we can do quicker is what I want to do. Want to get up here.
We want you here, Ray. Does anybody have anything else? Well, the door's already open, so briefly, sir, briefly.
Very brief.
One can only.
Honest to God. You were asking about what the size of 11 or 12,000, 13,000 square foot building. The plaza is 14,000 square feet. We're letting the seniors in.
The whole thing?
That's 14,000. So that'll give you an idea of what size the building is. And my last point is, I put in a FOIL request several weeks ago, a couple months ago, for information from the comptroller. It hasn't been honored, and I would like to have that honored before we have to proceed to another more troublesome request. So I'd like to have that fulfilled ASAP. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. In closing, I'd like to give everyone just a little bit of an update here on the 2021 project that's been happening. Week 2, there were 80 entries and totaling over $5,000. Week 3, there was 91 entries and total expenditures were over $6,200. Week 4, there was 99 entries and $14,500 was spent. So over the last 4 weeks, this project has brought over $30,000 into Milton, Charlton, Ballston. I think it's gone very well. Everybody seems to be pretty happy with it. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to the boys baseball team. They had a good bunch of guys. Won some honorable mentions here. Was Matt Arnold, Eric Hodnett, and Andrew Santa Barbara. Second team All-Stars were, I'm going to get his name wrong, Nate Kojeski. I feel bad about that, Dean Zlotnick. Ryan Narragansett, Aiden Ritchie, and Blaine Zoller were second team All-Stars. And first team All-Stars were Chance Cheka, Brody Keniston, and Andrew Kramer. So congratulations to those guys, and go Scotties. Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Hold the board, please.
Councilman Blazo.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hurd.
Yes.
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Jackson.
Yes.
Supervisor Serrano.
Yes. Thank you. Good evening, and may your God bless you.